Good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion and the beautiful Katie. How are you all doing today? Hope you said great. We are coming to you from Lincoln, Nebraska, and today we're actually doing a vlog that Katie found and was reading about, and we thought since we were here we should talk about this guy. Usually I try and do a story about someone who did something worthwhile, something redeeming, something artistic. Today we're talking about just an absolute kind of piece of garbage that has nothing redeeming. Modeled himself after James Dean, took a underage girlfriend and went on a killing spree, including her family, and ended up getting her sent to prison as the youngest female ever tried. His girlfriend was Carol Ann Fugate. He met her when she was 13, and at the age of 14 she was the youngest female ever convicted of first-degree murder. We're at Wyuka Cemetery. First time here, first time in Lincoln, first time in Nebraska actually this trip. That's very beautiful. Sadly, he is buried here, and so are many of his victims. Kind of feel like that shouldn't be allowed almost.
This was a crime that shocked the nation. It was known as kind of a young Bonnie and Clyde situation. Charles was 19 years old when he was caught and took Carol along for a very terrible, terrible ride. A lot of people fell in their wake. It inspired a lot of things in pop culture. There were songs from Billy Joel that it was mentioned.
Oh yeah, We Didn't Start the Fire, yep. The Nebraska Bruce Springsteen album.
Yes, it did. Lots of movies. Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen did a movie called Badlands, and he considered it some of his best work and his favorite movie.
They also said this was kind of the inspiration for Natural Born Killers as well.
Yes, it was.
So here is the man that we've been talking about, Charles Starkweather. Charles Starkweather, fortunately a horrible person. He was sentenced to death and executed 17 months after all of this. And Katie, what did you find out about the executioner?
Just a half an hour before the doctor was supposed to meet with Charles before the execution, he died a half an hour beforehand of a massive fatal heart attack.
Yeah. This guy, I was telling her, like, half jokingly, I'm like, I guess he got one more on the way out. As a kid, he was, I guess he was born with some sort of birth defect that affected his legs. And his father even had rheumatoid arthritis, which was a problem for him working and everything. But he also had a speech impediment. So he was bullied a lot when he was young. And then from everything I read, he developed as a teenager into like a real strong kid, and then started bullying like ruthlessly everyone that had ever bullied him. And then his friends would say about him, he was like the most fun guy to hang out with. He had a great sense of humor. He loved to pull pranks and everything, but they said he had a real dark side, that if he saw somebody that he thought was better looking or thought they were bigger than him or whatever, he said, like, Lord help him, because if he saw somebody like a big man on campus walking by, he immediately wanted to tear them down. He wanted to bring them down to size. So he had a serious complex with himself all of his life. He ended up sadly meeting a 13-year-old that he fell in love with when he was 18 in 1956, and it was Carol Ann Fugate. And he apparently quit school, got a job in the neighborhood of her school so that he could visit her every day, and he taught her how to drive. She even crashed his father's car, so his father threw him out of the house, and he got a job as a garbage collector. So his first act, do you remember, Katie? It was he wanted to get Carol Ann a stuffed animal, and didn't have the money for it. He had went to like a gas station to buy it and didn't have enough money, so the clerk told him, I can't sell it to you. He came back several times throughout the night harassing the guy, and then finally came back, robbed him, and killed him. Actually, robbed him, kidnapped him, took him out, like they went out took him out for a drive. I think he was gonna kill him. Then like they had a struggle and the guy was killed. So that was his very first murder, was trying to get a stuffed animal for this 13-year-old girl.
It was bizarre because he just had it out for people. He ended up developing just a hatred for people in general. He was even quoted as saying, "Only dead people are equal," or something to that effect.
Yeah, and you were telling me that he idolized James Dean.
He did. After seeing the movie Giant, he went to the point of dressing like him. His glasses look like him. If you
did his hair like him,
his hair looking just like him. If you see pictures, it's almost eerie to the effect of how much he
was trying
and adored. And I mean, a good-looking guy, it was probably very deceiving. I can only imagine what Carol was thinking. It was shortly after that said robbery and murder that he committed. He actually moved in with the family, they said, about 5 days before he ended up mercilessly killing her parents and 2-year-old baby sister. It's heartbreaking what he went through.
Yeah, he got into a fight with the parents.
Necessary just to take her.
Yeah, he was so in love with her that he got into a fight with her stepfather and mother, killed them, and then the baby sister was making noise, so he basically beat her until she was gone as well.
Yep, this was someone with no conscience whatsoever, showed no empathy or remorse. Up until the end, he had no final last words before his execution, showed no remorse, said no apologies.
Yeah, he ended up killing Carol Ann's family, and he ended up claiming later on that she was the mastermind behind all this. But in reality, apparently, she wasn't even there. He said she was there when he did all this to her family, but she claimed that when she got home, he met her with a gun and forced her to go with him because he said that her family would be safe if she did. She didn't know that they were already gone. She said they drove to a farmhouse of a man named August Meyer, one of their family friends who lived in Bennett, Nebraska, and Charles Starkweather killed him with a shotgun blast. Unbelievable. And then killed the guy's dog. So then fleeing there, he got his car stuck in the mud and waved down, forced a teenage couple to pull over and help him out, and you can imagine what happened to them. So that poor teen couple, he forced them into the car, forced them to drive to a storm cellar, and he shot the boyfriend, and then as you can imagine, he tried to molest the girlfriend and she ran. He ended up shot her, then drove to a wealthy section of Lincoln, broke in the home of Chester Ward and his wife, and ended up killing them. He killed the family dog by breaking its neck. It's sad. I hate telling about this stuff because such a horrible freaking guy. Killed the dog first so that it wouldn't make any noise. When the wife, Clara, came home, he ended up stabbing her and claimed that Carol Ann did it. And then when her husband returned home, they shot and killed him as well. Unbelievable.
Since the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, this was one of the first crimes that really just shocked the nation, as you could imagine. These were kids, these were young teenagers just doing horrible, horrible things.
So then after all of this, they took off, and needing a new car, they found a car parked to the side of the road. It was actually a traveling salesman. He was there sleeping, napping, and they woke him up with a fatal shot. Tried to even shoot him again, but the shotgun jammed. Starkweather, Charles Starkweather, claimed that Carol Ann was the most trigger-happy person he ever met, and that all of this was her idea. Isn't that crazy? He went down, you know, claiming to love this girl, and then once they were captured and he was questioned, he blamed everything on her. She claimed to really have nothing to do with any of it. Basically felt like she was a hostage forced to participate in all of this. What ended up getting them caught was that when they robbed the salesman and stole his car and shot him, his car had a parking brake, which Charles Starkweather was not familiar with. And so when he was trying to drive the car, it was stalling, and someone pulled over to see what was going on, pulled over to help him, and Charles Starkweather pulled a gun on them, and that's when the police came by and saw it and intervened.
Right when Charles was captured, she escaped the car running towards the deputy or the law enforcement officer, screaming, "Help me, he's gonna kill me."
Yeah, and then they thought that she was doing that as an act to save herself and to pin it all on him. So that's why it was such a crazy case. No one knew who to believe. You just know that her family was some of the victims in all of this, and people thought that she was involved.
It's honestly, it's a big, huge case of he said, she said, unfortunately. We'll never know. Carol is still alive, but she's the only person who knows at this point, and she'll probably take it to her grave.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were looking her up to find out, you know, what happened to her. She served like almost 20 years, like 18 years in prison, then got paroled, and then moved to Michigan, ended up getting married, and kind of lived a quiet life for many years, not really talking much about any of this. And then the last I was able to find was that her, like a year or two ago, she was in a pretty crazy car accident where she was very badly injured. Her husband was driving, and I guess they flipped the car, and he passed away, and she was pretty badly injured. But last we could find, she is still alive. And how old did we find out? Like
I believe
89?
They said she was 78 years old, and last we heard that she was trying to be pardoned of this crime because
that's right.
She's been swearing till the end that
she doesn't want to have a conviction on her conscience.
Exactly.
She said. So then the police tried to apprehend him, and Carol went running to them. He took off, and they led them on a chase. 3 police officers chased him for up to 100 miles per hour, shot out his windshield, and then because the glass hit him and he was bleeding, he thought he was dying, so he pulled over. The cop actually said, like, that's what a yellow coward this guy was, that he thought he was hurt, so he ended up giving up. At first, he claimed that he had kidnapped Carol Ann and that she had nothing to do with it, but then he kept changing his story. A lot of his victims are buried here, so we wanted to go and pay our respects to them.
None of these people, unfortunately, did anything wrong to deserve or warrant anything like this. Unfortunately, half of them didn't even see this coming.
Yeah, just running into a bad guy on a bad day, and it's sad that the focus of him is kind of what has shrouded the rest of their memory, but you know, I just think he was such a horrible person. You have to know all the bad things he did. Just across the street from the section that Charles was buried in, the Wards are buried. Here they are. Sadly, both passing away on January 28th, 1958. Chester Lauer Ward and Clara Ward, his wife. This is the unfortunate couple that I mentioned that he broke in and ended the life of their dog so that he wouldn't alert them, and then killed Clara and waited for hours for Chester to come home, who was a wealthy industrialist. Starkweather didn't even know who these people were. You can see he's... And then killed him. Killed them both for nothing, sadly. Here is the grave of Marion Bartlett, Betty Jean Bartlett, and Velda Bartlett. Velda was Carol Ann's mother. Her and Marion had been married for 2 years, and Betty Jean was their little baby. Sadly, they were the victims. They took in Charles, and Velda's body was found on the 27th in the shed behind their home. They were all found to be sadly murdered. So that Velda had another daughter who actually was expecting her to come over later. She was, I guess Velda was going to develop some photos and then was going to bring them over, and she never showed up. Well, my friends, we are going to call it a day here from Lincoln, Nebraska. Katie, thank you for finding this. I think this was a really fascinating one. It was really disturbing and really sad, but fascinating enough. They've made so many movies and so many pieces of art have come from this. Kind of crazy. But thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great night. Goodbye.